go very, very well for Corbett, and indeed the numbers are flowing in just that way. 73% according to these numbers so far to 27% for Sam Rohrer. So Corbett's cruising. And out covering Corbett at the Omni William Penn in Pittsburgh tonight is our very own Bo Koltnow. Things are going well for the Corbett campaign. Bo.
Robin and Wendy, I'm here with a very happy man. He's the campaign manager of Tom Corbett. It's Mr. Brian Nutt. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
First question I have is, what's your reaction to declaring victory so early in the night?
Well, it's the numbers that we've seen coming in all night. 2-1, 3-1 in a lot of counties that that come in early. Obviously, there's some counties that come in later, but all the trends are showing that it's going to be somewhere at 2 to 3-1 that Tom's going to be victorious tonight.
And you and I were just discussing it was bad weather tonight. There's been low voter turnout. Was that ever a concern for you guys, kind of going into the unknown in an election day?
Absolutely. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Obviously, we felt that the higher the turnout, we would do much better. But also, the lower turnout, we were concentrating on getting our voters to the polls, and that's what we ended up doing. But you always, anytime you go into an election day, it's the unknown that's always out there, and you never take anything for granted.
So where do you guys go from here to face off against the Democrats in November?
Basically, what we'll do is we'll continue what we're doing. Tom's going to talk about, basically the same issues he's been talking about for the last 6 or 7 months. And that's, getting an economic climate here in Pennsylvania that businesses want to either come here or expand here so that we can start creating jobs. I mean, right now we have the highest unemployment levels in Pennsylvania that we've had in 25 years. He's going to cut spending. He's going to make government more accountable and transparent for the taxpayers. And with the spending, I mean, we've watched the current administration increase spending 40% over the last 7 years. And, most people's paychecks, they're not increasing their salaries by 40%. So those are the types of things that we're going to be concentrating on throughout the summer and fall. And whoever we end up running against, I'm sure we'll have a pretty good contrast to what their beliefs are as far as what the state should be spending.
So what's the biggest challenge for either gubernatorial candidate? I mean, you have a $1 billion deficit this year. You have a crumbling infrastructure. You have stimulus money running out. How do you do all this and not raise taxes and get the state back on track?
Well, the first thing you do is you need to hold the line and say we're not going to raise taxes. As soon as when you go to Harrisburg and if you say that taxes are on the table, you can be sure to bet that there will be a tax increase. And Tom Corbett has said that he does not believe that we need to raise taxes. What we need to do is we need to do what families across Pennsylvania and businesses have been doing throughout the last year, 18 months, which is tightening their belt. If you're a family of 4, maybe 2 or 3 years ago you might have went out for pizza once every week. Now, because of the economy and cuts in salaries and so forth, maybe now you're only doing it once a month. And those are the types of things that government has to act like families and also businesses. And we have to stop spending like we're printing money, because we're not.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Again, Brian Nutt, campaign manager for Tom Corbett. He has just been declared the Republican gubernatorial winner for the primary tonight. He'll face off against a Democratic challenger in November. Robin, Wendy, back to you guys, and we'll come back here once Mr. Corbett goes up on the mic. Back to you guys in Lehigh Valley.
All right. Thanks, Bo.
Nice.
Speaking of the mic, one of Corbett's opponents, Sam Rohrer, is at the podium right now out in Lancaster County.
He has gone to the mic at the Shady Maple. Let's listen in.
We can all be proud, and for that I am very thankful to all of you. And with that, we'll come back later.
All right, we heard we'll come back later. Not much of a speech.
That's right.
But that's all we could hear at that point.
Brief response from
so
Sam.
I'm not sure he's exactly conceded at this point. And, of course, the Corbett campaign was waiting to hear, I presume, from the Rohrer campaign to make it official. So they were a little bit circumspect on that. But the AP has, in fact, declared this very lopsided situation a victory for Tom Corbett tonight. So that we know one of the check marks is in the governor's race on the Republican side. Now we're going to take a look at some other figures that we have not seen yet tonight.
Yeah, we're going to look at some House races right now. This is for the 131st District. You're looking at the incumbent there, Karen Beyer, right now in a very tight race, it appears, with Justin Simmons. And we have all but 5 of the precincts reporting right now. So this is a tight one right now for Karen Beyer.
And local candidates, politicians, bigwigs in the party are Karen Beyer supporters, of course. She's the incumbent. And the other fellow here who's giving her quite a challenge is one of the Tea Party candidates. So Tea Party is showing itself strong there. In this case, write-in candidate is Heidi Markow, and she's trailing Shegda in the early going in the 136th.
All right, we're going to look at the 137th here. Here we have Charles Dertinger here against Frank Scagliotta, and this one also very close. Only 7 precincts left to count, and this is neck and neck, 50% to 50%, even though you can see about 23 votes dividing them. So that one as well going to go down to the wire, it appears.
Right, in the race to fill the open seat of Rich Grusella, who's not running again. So on the Republican side, same district, you have 2 Republicans, and way out in the lead is Joe Emmerich of Upper Nazareth Township, chairman of the Board of Supervisors, leading Donald Albanese by a 78% to 22% margin. That's the 137th House District, the Rich Grusella seat.
All right, this is the special election right here to replace Craig Daly, the Republican who resigned to become a judge. So this is just for the remainder of the term through the end of this year. And right now you're looking at Marcia Hahn here with a substantial lead over Corey Miller. Now you can see this is Republican against Democrat for that specific reason, because it is to fill the seat throughout the rest of the year.
Right. In Reading, a referendum question. The folks in Reading are deciding on whether 2 departments should be merged into one to save some money, human resources and finance. And it looks like that's going to go to a yes vote tonight, 69% to 31%, with about 75% of the precincts reporting in Reading.
All right, so a lot of close races as expected tonight, so we're going to keep our eye on all of those. In the meantime, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
Congratulations. You're watching 69 News Election Central. Now from the anchor desk, here's Rob Vaughn and Wendy Davis.
Welcome back to Election Central. We have a few headline stories tonight and quite a number of races that are very tight. Some of them are exactly 50-50 at this point.
Very tight. One that is not, however, is one of our local congressional races here for the 15th district. You're looking at the board right here with the incumbent Charlie Dent out to a substantial lead right now over his opponent Matt Bennell.
All right, Charlie Dent, 81% of the vote in the early going, and of course that is setting up for Charlie Dent to take on Mayor John Callahan of Bethlehem, who is unopposed on the Democratic ticket. There's also an independent candidate. You wouldn't see that today, doesn't come into play in the primary. Jake Town would be the independent candidate. And we are being joined, I do believe now, by Congressman Dent by satellite from Washington. Hope you can hear us okay, and I guess you're in good shape as far as tonight's election is concerned. Congressman?
Hi, Rob. Well, I'm very pleased and gratified by the confidence the Republican voters have placed in me, so I'm very honored by this vote of confidence.
You know, if the Tea Party movement has arisen to oppose the president and his policies and so forth, and to say that we're headed in the wrong direction, why have some Tea Party candidates, such as your opponent, arisen to oppose you? Are you too much a part of the establishment situation there in Washington?
Well, we've seen Tea Party candidates from all over the country, and let's face it, I get a lot of support from people who are Republicans, independents, and some Democrats, and I get support from a lot of people who call themselves members of the Tea Party. So, again, the Tea Party movement, these are people who are genuinely concerned about the role of the federal government in their lives and the amount of spending in Washington. And in many respects, I share much of the concern that they have about this alarming agenda that's coming out of Washington right now.
Congressman John Callahan, who you're most likely going to be facing come November, has said, you voted to bail out the banks. Now you're opposing financial industry reform. What's your reaction when he comes at you with things like that?
Well, the truth is, John Callahan wants to become part of this Washington establishment. He has been embraced by Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and all of her top lieutenants. He is the one who wants to embrace this alarming agenda that is slowing down our economic recovery. Let's face it, he's the one who's pushing this health care bill with all the law, with the mandates and the taxes that are job killers. He's pushing the cap and trade and the card check, this national energy tax. That's where he's going. And let's be very clear about this. That's the contrast. He wants to come down and be another rubber stamp for Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And I think we have to stop her and her agenda. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that happens. And I think the people around this country are rising up against it. He wants to be part of that agenda, and I'm trying to fight it right now.
You know, some of the pundits out there are saying that this is the most attractive, plausible Democratic candidate that you will have faced. In other words, the Democratic Party is pretty enthused about John Callahan as their man. So, are you worried about that?
Hey, look, we're going to run our campaign, and we're going to run it on the issues. We're going to talk about jobs, the economy, moving this country forward. We're going to talk about a more limited role of the federal government in the lives of people, and we're going to draw a very strong contrast, and we'll let the voters make the decision. But we feel very good about where we are in this race, and I look forward to this challenge, and I'm predicting we're going to be victorious at the end of the day.
What do you think is going to happen in the Senate race, if I could just switch gears just a little bit here? Is Pat Toomey a fellow who can win this race no matter who takes the Democratic side?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And depending on who wins the Democratic primary, if it's Joe Sestak, I think Pat Toomey and Joe Sestak will present a very sharp ideological contrast that I think voters will have a very clear choice there. And I think Pat Toomey will clearly prevail. And if it's Arlen Specter, there will also be a very strong contrast where you'll get into perhaps generational issues and one of the institution and one who is not. So depending on who Pat faces, I think in either case he matches up very well, and I think he's very well positioned to become the next United States Senator from Pennsylvania.
You think the House is retaken by the Republicans? I think you need about 40 seats captured.
Yeah.
Is that plausible for this fall?
It's pretty hard. Well, certainly it's plausible, but I believe that the Republicans are within striking distance of taking back the U.S. House of Representatives. I have never seen so many high-quality candidates on the Republican side emerge around the country, and there are multiple candidates emerging in, say, a given seat. We have many contested primaries all over the country in the primaries of many very fine candidates. So I am very encouraged. You're seeing a lot of Democratic retirements of Democrats who are in, I'll say, our marginal districts. You see Dave Obey, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, is calling it quits after all these years from a very powerful position. Many of the Democratic members in Tennessee and Arkansas have said they're not running again. They're not running again because they know they can't win. I mean, let's be very honest about that. That's why they're not running. These are, in many cases, long-term incumbents, so I feel very encouraged by our prospects going into the fall. I'm not going to make a prediction tonight that we're going to take the House back, but we are within striking distance.
What's next for you, Congressman? Senate race maybe in the future?
Well, you know, I take this one day at a time, one election at a time. I very much enjoy this opportunity to serve in the United States House of Representatives. It's a tremendous responsibility and a privilege and an honor to do this. I always said after my family, this has been the most meaningful experience of my life. And so I'm just enjoying my service in the Homeland Security Committee, the Ethics Committee, Transportation Committee, and trying to do what I can to help the people of our region as best we can. And right now, you know, we have an economy that needs a lot of repair and a lot of fixing, and I want to make sure we're enacting the right policies to help people get back to work.
All right, Congressman Charlie Dent, thank you so much for joining us. And he is now the declared winner.
Thank you, Congressman.
In the Republican
Congratulations.
Yeah. And looking forward to November.
And thanks to Matt Bennell, too, for participating in the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Congressman.
Congressman Charlie Dent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, taking a look once again at how some of the latest figures are shaping up tonight. We talked about the Senate race, and we now see that this is not only neck and neck, but we've had a flip to see Joe Sestak just an inch ahead. It's 50-50 by percentage, but you can see about 1,000 votes of separation in this very, very big state. 36% of the precincts now reporting, and Sestak was trailing, but he has now moved just a little bit ahead. All right, and we're going to talk to Dr. Christopher Borick again, and we wanted to just touch base with the Senate because, of course, that's one of the big stories of the night. But we've just wrapped up, as you know, with Congressman Dent, and that's another big race for us that's not for tonight so much, but for the fall. And what do you make of that as a matchup? Callahan is supposed to be one of the, as I told the congressman, one of the most high-powered Democratic candidates put up against Dent in quite some time, if ever, in Charlie Dent's career.
I think that's a fair statement, Rob, and I think the Democratic Party in the Lehigh Valley is very much enthused about the chances that Mayor Callahan will have in this race. The 15th district that is represented by Congressman Dent voted in the last 3 presidential elections for Al Gore, John Kerry, and Barack Obama. There is a Democratic advantage in registered voters, and it's a place where, to be honest, the Democratic Party has underperformed in congressional races. They've been looking for what they would consider a top-notch candidate to take on Congressman Dent, and they feel that they have one in Mayor John Callahan. That being said, Charlie Dent is a very strong candidate in this district. He has created a reputation of being a middle-of-the-road conservative, leaning right, but not ideologically too right for this district, and that makes him not the easiest candidate to go after in a race. And I think we're looking at there's a lot of interest in Washington and outside in this district, and I think there's good reason. This should be one of the better races to watch.
Dr. Borick, as we see tonight, Callahan and Dent, really not much of a race for them tonight in the primary. So as the numbers trickle in, what are their people looking at? What are they monitoring to try to figure out how they're going to plot their game plan for November? Yeah,
it's hard to glean very much from these primary results for either Mayor Callahan or Congressman Dent. It really doesn't say a lot about where the race is right now. I think what they're trying to get a sense of is first of all, where are some of the moods, the national moods going? Where are some of the local moods politically taking us right now? And where do they stand in terms of shaping up for this particular race? I think the idea will be, is John Callahan able to convince enough voters in the 15th district that Charlie Dent has become too much of a Washington institution, even in a year where it's usually the other way around, where Democrats feel like they're on the defensive, being in the majority. Can Callahan spin a campaign that puts Charlie Dent as the institution and the Washington candidate, and him as the outsider? And is Charlie Dent able to take advantage of some of the broader Republican tides that are running this year? So it'll be interesting to see who can capitalize more on those different patterns.
And it should be a big money issue, I would think. Don't you think the national campaign will pour a ton of money into the Lehigh Valley?
Absolutely, Rob. This has, as I mentioned before, incredible national interest, and the money will come in from outside. In a year that many Democratic candidates, incumbents, are running scared and will be trying to defend, this is one of the districts that Democrats are optimistic that they can push a Republican candidate, and that will draw a lot of outside money. It'll draw a lot of local money into this race. Both of these candidates are well established and have shown already to date that they are capable of raising a lot of money, and you'll see one of the most aggressive and probably the most vibrant political campaigns on the local scene at the congressional level that we've seen in over a decade.
You said about a lot of money coming in. Is this another instance where we're going to see a lot of high-profile political people coming in as we get closer to November to stomp for both of these candidates?
Absolutely, Wendy. This is a case where if this race indeed matches up to what we expect it to do and be a very competitive race, you'll see people from both the parties drop into this race. We're in a good place in a lot of reasons. We're close to Washington, D.C. Political candidates and officials from Washington can get up to this district very quickly, so they can drop in for an afternoon for a quick event. And again, it's at the same time going to be at the heart, the Lehigh Valley, like it often is, at the heart of the political races statewide. So you're going to see a lot of action. We should be at the center of another political storm come November, like we have been this spring.
All right, Dr. Chris Borick, thanks so much for your insights, and it's our privilege now, having just talked to you and to Charlie Dent, to talk to Charlie Dent's opponent.
That's right. In November, we're going to talk to Mayor Callahan live. And there he is at his headquarters in Allentown. Mayor, can you hear us?
I can. How are you, Wendy?
Fine, thank you.
Congratulations on the primary thing is all done for you now. We can start thinking about November, but congratulations are in order, and now you can aim at the big game plan is for November and Charlie Dent and telling the Lehigh Valley all about yourself. I imagine you have a big vote of confidence as you finish up tonight and head into the real game plan now.
Well, Rob, thank you very much. I'm awfully excited to be here in Allentown with all of our supporters that have worked so hard to get us to this point.
Congressman, Mayor.
Rob, I can.
Yeah, okay, good. You know, it must be very flattering to be called
They're excited. They're excited.
It must be very flattering. It must be very flattering to be called the strongest possible candidate that the Democrats have fielded against Charlie Dent, but also maybe kind of sobering to know that you're coming into it at a time when there's sort of a swell against Democrats in this country.
Rob, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, it came out at just the wrong time.
You could say that one more time.
I will say it one more time, sure. I was saying it must be flattering to know that the party thinks you're one of the strongest candidates ever to be fielded against Congressman Dent, but maybe also sobering at the same time to realize that there's perhaps a groundswell of disenchantment with Democratic policies at the very same time in this country. What do you think?
Well, I'm excited about where we are in this race. To me, it's not about the support of the party, it's support of the folks behind me, it's the sort of the folks here and the residents of Lehigh Valley that want to see leadership in Congress that represents their values, folks that are interested in growing the middle class, growing jobs, growing this economy. That's what this election's going to be about in November, and that's what we're going to focus on. And I'm happy to have the support of the party, but this is going to be a grassroots effort across this region to bring change to Lehigh Valley. I think that Washington, people are frustrated with Washington. They're frustrated with the fact that people are playing a lot of partisan games in D.C., and they want someone who's going to focus on real results. We've done that in Bethlehem, and we want to do that for the rest of Lehigh Valley.
Now, Mayor, the Lehigh Valley traditionally is a lot of Democrats in the city areas, and Congressman Dent's been reelected several times, and we're seeing, like Rob said, a backlash against Democrats. What makes you think that people are going to go against a Republican in this environment, especially one who's been reelected several times?
Well, I don't really see this as an anti-Democratic situation. I would think it's really an anti-incumbent situation. And again, I think it's symptomatic of the fact that people think that Washington, D.C. is broken, and there's not enough people focused on the real issues about jobs, the economy, balancing budgets, paying down debt, doing all the things that we've done in Bethlehem. 5,000 jobs, $2 billion in economic investment. We balanced our budgets, we've paid down debt, and people want that kind of leadership in Washington, whether that's Democrat or Republican. They want results.
You know, a few minutes ago, I don't know if you had a chance to hear it, we talked to Congressman Dent by satellite from Washington, and he said something that I think in the brief time we have tonight, I ought to give you a chance to come back at. He said the short nutshell version of this is that John Callahan's going to be joining the Nancy Pelosi establishment. In other words, John Callahan equals Nancy Pelosi. What would you say?
Well, Rob, I don't commute to Washington, D.C. every day to go to work. I represent the folks in Bethlehem and here in the Lehigh Valley, and I think that those are the kind of Washington games that we are sort of tired of. And I'm not going to represent Nancy Pelosi or any party. I'm going to represent the folks in the Lehigh Valley, and I think for too long we've seen people voting for or representing corporate special interests and not the middle class and not the folks that are working to try to make a better life for themselves.
All right, Mayor Callahan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, congratulations on tonight. We'll be talking to you a lot this summer and this fall. Thank you. All right. John Callahan, the mayor, and now the congressional Democratic nominee in the Lehigh Valley. That's right. We're going to see the Callahan-Dent, of course, matchup in November. And we're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
The tents are up.
You're watching 69 News Election Central. Now from the anchor desk, here's Rob Vaughn and Wendy Davis. And welcome back to Election Central. We want to get right away to the governor's race, and there is the Republican candidate Sam Rohrer, who has lost tonight. Concession speech. Let's listen in.
I will state that and restate it again because you are. You know, I have found that as we've begun to lay out the message of hope, lay out the message of freedom, talk about our Constitution and what it means and what it ought to mean as our guiding principles and who God is, and underneath all of our rights are established and all of these things that are so near and dear and precious to us all, the response across this Commonwealth has been just absolutely phenomenal. And as we've have the privilege to travel and to be and speak to well over probably 200 groups different settings across the state in this length of time, literally almost without exception. 99% of the people, even though they came in wondering where they were, they left fully convinced that there was hope for this state, that the principles in which we believe, that have established our freedom, are still just as vibrant today as it was when our founders were here, and offered hope for the days ahead. And as I've laid out, as you know, I think we're in very difficult days. We're in difficult days in this Commonwealth. We're in very difficult days in this nation. And without a doubt, the kind of direction that we have been getting have led us further and further into the woods and into the mud. And it was that I tried to lay forth a concrete foundation of principles that could take us from where we are back to where we all would like to be. Those principles will never fail. And the God that has blessed this country is always faithful. And our Constitution is always as true tomorrow as it was in the past. And it offers for us the framework that we can handle difficult challenges as they come before us as a state and as a nation. So therein offers us great hope. Now, we certainly would have wished that we would be able to take us to the second level as we move forward into the state, because I believe, without a doubt, that without the kinds of things that we're believing and believe in the conviction and the courage to act upon it, I think we have very difficult times dealing with those challenges that are before us. And so, that being the case, we're going to have to double down and move forward. But as Jeff said, I think very clearly we need to understand this is a movement. We said from the beginning that this is not about me. I said I'm willing to step out and to run, and if the people of this Commonwealth so choose to put me in a position, then you know exactly where I'm going to go and how I would govern. Well, that's not going to happen right at the moment. But who knows what happens down the road? That we cannot say.
Sam Rohrer is speaking tonight in Lancaster County. He has lost in the race for governor to Tom Corbett. This was expected. Sam Rohrer says, who knows what's down the road? Not committing to anything, of course. He has been a state representative for a number of years in Berks County, but Corbett will be the standard bearer for the Republican Party in the governor's race.
All right. Well, the other big race that we have been watching, and right now a winner declared. Joe Sestak declared the winner over incumbent Arlen Specter. So you would like to say surprise, but in the last few days, this is not really a surprise. Sestak pulling out in a lot of the polls, and there he was able to pull it off over Arlen Specter, who was going for a 6th term there in Washington.
And as Dr. Borick told us earlier, a lot of times the conventional wisdom is to see the challengers break in the last minute for the challenger. And Joe Sestak apparently has taken advantage of some of those undecideds at the last minute, perhaps, because some of the more recent polls had them deadlocked. Now let's go to Joscelyn Moes covering the Sestak campaign. She is in Delaware County. Hi, Joscelyn.
Hi, guys. The crowd here is definitely excited. We've been hearing cheers and chants of Joe, Joe, Joe. And right now we are joined by Joe Langdon, the spokesperson for the campaign. I guess congratulations are in order to you. How do you think you got to this point? What can you attribute the shift in momentum to?
Well, I mean, this is democracy in action. I mean, this campaign has fought tooth and nail for almost a year, and what we've achieved is something that even from the very beginning up to only a few weeks ago, everybody said couldn't be done. And we did it. We did it on, with a small, dedicated staff that just simply believed in what they were doing, and we had the message that the people of Pennsylvania have been desperate to hear. We need accountability down in Washington. We need a firm commitment, an unwavering commitment to stand up for what's best for the working families of Pennsylvania, and we need to change politics. And that's what everybody's desperate to hear, and that's what Joe delivered. And we've been working the state up and down, just at an absolutely tireless pace for months. And finally, at the end, I think once we got our message out, once people knew Joe Sestak, you saw this kind of enthusiasm.
Now, you had mentioned this was a grassroots campaign, and you did this without the endorsement of President Obama, without the endorsement of Joe Biden, or for that matter, the state. Just talk about, you can hear some more cheers right now, just talk about what you think that people were looking for. What sort of change? Was it that they were tired of the same old in Washington, or what do you think people were looking for?
Well, I mean, Joe Sestak's a new kind of leader for Pennsylvania and for the nation, really. I mean, he's a former three-star admiral. He's the highest-ranking former military officer ever elected to Congress. He's got a tremendous record of fighting for our democratic values, and not only our democratic values, but universal values.